Welcome back to the Mayor's Update. Well, Mayor, it's that time of year when we spend a lot of time talking with our council and our community about our budget for the coming year.
Right.
We're right in the middle of developing our 2015 budget. But this year in particular, we've spent a lot of time talking about our budget because of the structural deficit work we did last spring. So I was hoping you could give us an update on
Sure.
kind of some of the changes that came out of that and what we have coming forward in the next couple of months.
You know, I think clearly one of the most challenging budget processes I've ever been through, and I spent over 30 years in the private sector, and you know, budgets every year were a challenge. Obviously, budgets are a challenge at home as well, always. But the first 6 months, with a lot of really great staff work led by Paul Kaftansky, we took over 400 ideas from employees and council members and citizens. We examined all of those and looked for ways to structurally balance our budget. And if you remember, Meghan, the situation is really this. And just a few minutes ago, we were talking about an improving economy, and thank goodness we have that. But a lot has changed in the revenue streams for government, and particularly local government. And our situation is repeated numerous times across the state. So we have revenue growing 2.3%. We've got expenses growing over 4%. Structurally, it just makes sense. You just can't sustain that. So we really look for ideas both in terms of revenue opportunities and expense reductions to bring those two in balance. And I think we fully realized, and really the debate the council had about this and their ultimate vote was a recognition that this was really phase one. There's a lot more work to do in the future, and I suspect that we're going to have some fundamental changes in terms of how we operate in the future and how we deal with wages and benefits and health care, all those issues that are really important to employees and important to the economy, but also need to be managed significantly. We, as you remember, we had a budget gap in 2015 of about $12 million. Some of that was closed with revenue or expense underrun from last year. Part of it, about half of it, was continued expense reduction. We eliminated another 15 positions. That's on top of already eliminating 25 permanently. And we looked for revenue opportunities that were balanced, that we could really sort of look across the board, and our fee structure in a way that our fees reflected the actual cost of doing business. Our fees intentionally, in my administration and in previous administrations, was kept artificially low. But you know, when you had revenue opportunities like 6% property tax per year, you didn't have other exemptions to deal with, this municipalities enjoyed a pretty strong revenue source for a lot of years, probably up to 2000. And then we began to see initiatives come into play, and so that there's really been an assault on local city revenue and municipality revenue for probably the last 10 to 14 years. And so what we did is we looked at those, went back and looked at those fee structures, whether you have a business license or applying for new development or other kinds of activities that require staff to do extraordinary work beyond their daily activity. And we adjusted those fees in a way that's, I think, balanced in terms of what the rest of municipalities are doing around the state, and really reflect the true cost of doing business. And then we looked at tax increase opportunities. Now this is always hard, and it's never easy for an elected official to look out at citizens and businesses and say, you know, this tax structure just does not support the level of service that we all come to enjoy and expect. But I think we did take a balanced approach. We looked at the biggest opportunity we had, which was utility tax. And unlike a lot of cities that were already at the maximum, we had about 1.5% of growth. Now, a lot of people have said to me it's a regressive tax. Well, probably all tax is regressive. I would just, admit that to start with. But utility tax is one, whether you're paying a cable bill, whether you have garbage service and at what level, whether you have a big home or a small home or a medium-sized home, all of that rate of service or that rate of delivery of that utility is really a function of an economic level, if you will. And so we looked at, for example, an average house, an average homeowner, and with smartphones and cable service and all the rest. And if I remember correctly, the average increase on utility tax was like $7 a month more. Now, if you're a large business, like some that we won't mention, but it's a lot more than $7 a month increase. So the businesses that have high use of natural gas or electricity or other kinds of services, computer services, they're going to pay a higher amount. So it really does and really is a reflective tax of the level of business and level of activity, the level of concentration you have. So, fortunately, the majority of the council supported our request for that. The other one that we passed is to create this tax or a transportation benefit district. I think that's the acronym, where it allows us to charge a $20 car tab. So any vehicle that's licensed in the city of Everett on an annual basis will pay $20. Now, if you look around us, the state hasn't passed a transportation package yet. We have used general fund money to do street overlay and the improvements we see every summer. We've used general fund revenue to do local matches when we have had money for a Broadway bridge or some kind of transportation package program or project. So that car tab will allow us to give some relief to the general fund so we can support other kinds of activities. So all of that and some other adjustments that we made through the end of August, we are now at a point where as we look at the 2015 budget, we're balanced. And what that should say is, particularly to our city employees, is we've stabilized our budget and expense and revenue for now. So in terms of widespread layoffs or deep cuts in service, that's not going to happen. Now, does that mean that we can just sort of wash our hands and everything is A-okay? No, absolutely not. And phase 2 will be looking at starting with our largest and most expense-intense departments: fire, police, transit, some of our large departments, and we're looking at ways to be more efficient. We have a consultant that we're looking at that will help us look at our fire department that's done work nationally in other cities and states around the country. I think that will be very helpful. We are beginning to get help in our transit department. I suspect that once you sort of have to take this in manageable bite-sized pieces. Once we get past this and we get some recommendations that we can move forward on, and some may require adjustments in union contracts, and we'll have to negotiate those, then we'll move to other departments. But I think that the theme here is going forward, we will continually look at department by department, how do we do business, what's the level of service that we're providing, and can we be smarter, more efficient, can we use technology, what can we do to continually look at reducing that cost of providing that service. So the other part of this equation, and this is sort of the looming issue for all government and all citizens and all businesses, and that is the cost of health care. And you know, we stated throughout the structural deficit process, and we weren't negotiating, but we you know, the recommendation was there, and we addressed it head on, that we're going to ask for a 10% contribution from all employee work groups as a part of mitigating that healthcare cost. And that will help, but it won't be enough. I mean, we're going to have to continually look at, particularly with national healthcare coming, and the threat of a Cadillac tax. If we don't get our healthcare costs under control, we have to find new and less expensive, but maintaining high quality healthcare ways of delivering healthcare services. So, I mean, it's, you know, and we all went through it. That 6 months felt like 6 years, and it was difficult and painful and brought out a lot of emotions. But it also, I think, really did something, and it really, I think, made all of us sit back for a moment and be very appreciative of the great quality of life that we have, and the fact that we dealt with this in an intelligent way, and we didn't affect that quality of life in a negative way. I think that's huge. And so I'm really grateful how far we've come, but as I look out, I know we've got months and years of work ahead of us. But we have completed a very significant foundational piece to being structurally balanced going forward.
Great. Well, thank you, Mayor.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking some time with us.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us. We hope you'll come back next month.